People don't realise the labyrinth of Victorian tunnels that are beneath their feet. You know, when you think of the thousands of people that come through this station every day, and they don't realise there's miles and miles of tunnels under here. But there is a need for the tunnels, or there was a need for them. In the trains, when they brought produce, be it grain or any other produce up from London, or lots of stuff was transported from France and further afield, there was sluice gates on the platform themselves. They'd be opened and the grain would fall into the archways underneath. Down here is the old boiler room in the station, which today is used for many of the shop outlets up the stairs to be used as stores. This is the old boiler room of the station. Now, when we look at the ceilings in here, in those days, in the 1800s, they never had the same cement sealants as we have today. Now, an ingenious way of building this sweeped arch was devised. The wooden dioceses were built, which were shaped like this. The bricks were put in the top. The wooden dioceses were hoisted into place, held where they were until they solidified, taken away, and that gave us the shape that we have. It was ingenious. As I mentioned earlier on, the sluice gates that were on the platforms for the storing of grain and various other produce, these are examples of them here, although this was the original boiler room. We can understand how high the infant mortality rate was in Scotland at the time, given that the grain would fall into areas like this. People would come in horses and carts, shovel the stuff onto the back of a lorry, back of a horse and cart, and take it away. These areas here were infested with rats. Thankfully they're not today, but they were then. This corner here of the old boiler house has quite a morbid importance. In 1929, in the stock market crash of New York, when many people lost most of their savings and possessions, there was a Glaswegian investment banker who lived in Newton Mearns, lost all of his money in stocks and bonds in New York, was an absolutely distraught and shattered man. So the only way that he thought he could recoup his money was he heavily insured his wife, and he brought her down here in 1929 and strangled her in that corner. But, as the old adage says, crime doesn't pay, because he was executed in Berlin prison in Glasgow for that. That everything in this station, be it sub-level or the top level for everybody to see, everything is done with a purpose. These gates are painted red to illustrate the fact that the mail train would leave here every single night, carrying all the parcels and letters that would go into London Euston and for distribution by the Royal Mail. That's why we have the gate on here. The gate was on because sacks of money and other precious items would be transported overnight on the mail train. The most famous one being in 1962, where Ronnie Biggs and the great train robbers stopped the train. This area holds specific significance and resonance in Glasgow, and that when the tragic loss of life during the First World War, this is an illustration of how cheap life was in Glasgow and in Europe as a whole, given the killing fields of the First World War. That the bodies of the men were actually brought down here and left in piles and stretchers for their loved ones and for funeral undertakers to come and get them. Now, I've carried out many tours of this station over the years, and next door there's another area where predominantly the most amount of bodies were held. And strangely enough, when I take people down here, I don't know why, I don't know what the explanation is, but it's a very warm, rarefied atmosphere in here, as you can see. That's illustrating how perfect the girders have been preserved. When you go in next door, it's freezing cold, and I don't know the reason for that. From these discussions and this information I've given you today, at least stop a while in Central the next time you're on your way, either home or on a journey or for a night out, pause for a wee minute and take a look at the magnificent building that the Glaswegians and Scots have. It's definitely worth it.